All right. Well, you heard that little dingy, dingy, dingy. That was the sound of my first guest trying to call me because I'm gone over time now. So let's correct that, and I will call him right now. I'm very excited to have him on. He is the cousin of a friend of someone that I spoke with uh, yesterday, Mr. Elvis Gorey. And Elvis was kind enough to inform me that his cousin, Angelo, actually contracted and is now recovering from COVID-19. And so I think it's important that we open up this dialogue and we talk to somebody who's actually been through it because all of us have had this conjecture about what is actually going on and how it actually affects people, and we've been talking about it, and that's great, but we're coming from a place of non-experience, and I think that it's extremely valuable to talk to somebody who's actually been through it firsthand. And so I have him on the line. I haven't brought him over live just yet. Angelo, if I can get you to turn your camera sideways, that would be awesome, so that we can get the nice widescreen video. And perfect. That looks great. And we will now bring you over into the conversation. And you'll notice the folks that have been here before will notice the layouts change because I'm kind of playing with some stuff. So here we go. Angelo, how are you, my friend? How are you feeling?
I am 70%.
I understand that because this is a respiratory thing, that our time is limited, so I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time myself. I'm just wondering if you can come from a place of experience and tell us a little bit about you know uh, from the very first time you started to feel poorly and then found out what it was and then what that process looked like.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'll do the where am I in the category of mild, severe, and critical. I sent you a link that's called Information is Beautiful. I'm in the category of 81% of the people will experience what's called mild flu-like stay-at-home symptoms,
Okay.
like any other flu. I am in the category of 13, say 14% is severe, will require some hospitalization or a lot. And then there's a group that is 4.7%, say we use 5%, is critical and needs intensive care. So I'm in the window way on the other side of this, between severe and mild. I didn't require hospitalization because my fever never got above 100 for very long.
Okay. So you're basically through this. You stayed at home then.
Yeah, I've been home since March 17th.
Okay. And what was it like for you when you first started to feel poorly? Did you think that you were just coming down with a cold, or did you immediately suspect that something else was going on? And then how did you get diagnosed? And what were the recommendations from there?
I uh, I developed just nagging cough between March 17th and 20th. I live out in Vancouver. We have an acreage, and after 3 days of being outside, by the time I came in on, say, the Friday, I was coughing just terribly. It would not go away. And it was dry cough, just dry cough, like eyes bugging out. Saturday, the PSW that comes to look after my wife, who is disabled, I look after her, uh, said, Angelo, you sound terrible. You should go to the COVID clinic. So I did. Uh, they checked me all out and said, you know what, you're fairly healthy, you're an ex-runner, you should be okay, just go home, here's a puffer, and just rest, and it should pass. I didn't get COVID tested because I didn't make the cut. You have to have a fever over 100. So I was sent home with a puffer, and by March 23rd, 24th, I got really violently sick. The fever shot up to 103. So on the 24th, the 24th, 25th, I had to go to emergency in the middle of the night, and there they swabbed me and gave me antibiotics for pneumonia. I now developed pneumonia by the chest X-ray, and again I was sent home to rest, and with the thought that the medication is a really strong antibiotic for pneumonia would take care of it. From the 26th to the 1st of April, 4 days of hell. I just slept all day and could barely move. And by the 2nd of April, I had to get a second uh, dose of it's called azithromycin for pneumonia. And I just finished it 2 days ago. So what I was trying to get at is basically this coronavirus, for at least for me, it didn't really blow up. Almost 2 weeks into from first cough to fever and like extremely sick. And what I mean by blow up, by that time I had pneumonia, which is it's not the virus, it's bacteria. It's an infection in our lungs. All the dead cells that came from the virus settled into my lungs, and it got so bad now that I had an infection, which
Gotcha.
most people don't understand. That's what kills people, by the way. That's two separate parts that this virus starts. First, you get the hacking part. If you survive it and you get a mild version, you're okay. But if it gets in your lungs, which it did for me, that's nasty shit.
Yeah, so this is, something that we are here in my house are acutely aware of and are on guard for because our eldest daughter has cystic fibrosis, which, essentially
Ouch.
COVID-19 or coronavirus is a fibrosis of the lungs, and that's what creates that dry kind of nagging cough. And then, also combined with that is, it's brutally difficult to breathe because, it's creating or inhibiting your lungs from functioning normally, and then absolutely creates a breeding ground for because things are compromised, creates a breeding ground for other infections and bacteria like pneumonia, which become far more serious. What you know, what was it like for you when you had like maybe prior, just before the pneumonia kicked in? Did you experience any of that things where was breathing difficult? We have people that are saying like my daughter has with her fibrosis is it's like the feeling of drowning.
I, uh, you couldn't have described it better for about a week or so, because all I was doing is this. I was doing that constantly. It was the most helpless feeling that I've ever had. By the way, I've run 10 marathons. I have never been short of air. It's like drowning. It's the worst feeling ever. Going upstairs, I had to cook for my wife. Just I barely had enough to make a little meal and sit down and then fall asleep. That's how bad it was. That was that between day 12 to 16, 17. There was about a week in there where I was just completely out of air. And by the way, even the puffer wasn't helping. It was just the puffer also made me cough. It was just that week was probably the worst experience of my life.
Yeah, the thing about the puffer is usually it's something like Ventolin, which is just basically there to kind of blow open the bronchial tubes, or make them force them to expand so that you can try to get more flow of oxygen in. And in this case, with fibrosis, it doesn't help much because the airways themselves are clear. It's the ability of the lungs to absorb and transform that, that's inhibited.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I felt like. Whatever puffing, I one day I think I did it 5 or 6 times, and then I threw it away for a while because it has steroids, and then I got really irritable. My wife was saying, "Angelo, what the hell has happened to you?" I couldn't use puffer for about 3 or 4 days because it wasn't helping, and I got so irritable that I just stopped it.
yeah, understood. Um, Now, when you first were, had this feeling that you were feeling well, I guess, and you may have answered this and I may have missed it because I'm a little groggy. Um, was it was it was it something that kind of just crept up until all of a sudden it was there and then it was very quick? Um, as in
No,
like,
no, 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 no. Oh my goodness. I've tracked over here just to give you an idea, okay, of ratio of, I call it the rest ratio. Let me go back here. I started tracking it on March 27th, whereas basically it was 75% rest, 25% do something. So that's the 20. By the way, before that, it was basically sleep all day for about 10 days. From the 27th on, I went 75, 25. The following week, I was 50-50. Today, I'm 25, 75. I'm resting 25% of the time, and 75% of the time, I call it moving around. Just to give you some other parameters, taste is not back yet. Smell is barely back. I can't eat because I can't taste it. I've lost nearly 10 pounds and it's just starting to come back, just barely coming back. I still have a little bit of fever, like little sweat, like 99 at night. It was slow. It's been slowly coming down. So, day 26. Today I call it 70% of overall. Sleep ratio is about 1/4 to 3/4. No headaches, just a little bit of chills, just taking a little puffer. Appetite is so-so. That taste and smell, I really don't have any appetite. Now it's like I need my strength and I can't give it. I can't put any weight on.
yeah, and
My Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the thing that's alarming to me is that, you, as you said, you're somebody that's what was incredibly physically active, and you were a runner and all this kind of thing, which means that if it's bringing someone, in your current or your state of health as it was at the time down that drastically, what does it do for poor slobs like me, and I'm assuming lots of the other population that aren't, marathon runners.
Well, you know what, Chris? Be careful on the Bruce Law thing. You know what? Uh, we all have a completely different genetic. Every one of us is different. You may very well skate through with a mild sniffle. Like my wife, by the way, she was tested. She's had a cough for 8 days, but that's all she's had. No fever,
Gotcha.
nothing. Uh, by the way, I had H1N1, just so that you know how lucky this guy is. And the health unit said that possibly my lungs were already somewhat hampered from that bout because it turned into pneumonia as well. And this might have been just enough to kind of put me over versus someone like you or someone else that doesn't have any other things. If you read on that link that I sent you, 4 things that are the things that add: cardiovascular, diabetes, chronic respiratory, abnormally high blood pressure, cancer. Those are the kind of like the top 5 that if you, by the way, cancer, even if you've had it, you're already in a higher risk category. So probably for me here, the lung damage that I got might have been the one that put me over just in that, I wasn't hospitalized, but it was enough to get me.
Yeah, understood. Sorry, I just want to read a couple of things that are coming in comments wise. Bridget says, sending you healing prayers, Angelo. I'm going through this too, 23 days now, and thank you for spreading awareness. So that's interesting that she's been going through it that long as well.
23 days.
23
oh,
days.
My goodness.
Sandra says, we hope you're feeling better soon. Thank you for coming to talk to us. Diane, thank you for sharing your story. All the best to you. Now, Jocelyn comes in with a question and says, and this is important because, you're currently taking care of somebody. Have you had to isolate from your wife and or her PSW?
Yeah, we've got a big enough house that basically she's in the west wing, I'm in the east wing. I prepare food separately. I have those long handled tongs. We've been trying to do as much as possible wherever I can. When I get close, I wear my mask. So we've hung in there, but like I said, I have a feeling that she may have caught it. Just it's been so long since we've been cooped up. The PSWs, many of you have refused. The two out of the bunch that we were getting are still coming in, and we're just getting by with that. Yeah, but that's a good question. Yeah, it's so hard to be in isolation this long without both of you eventually getting it. I have a feeling she has it, and it's going to be hers will be much milder than mine. It's very common, by the way. No two people will get it exactly the same.
Yeah, and it's important to note too that you are in sort of like a closed circulation area, right? Where how
Yeah,
can this thing not kind of fly around? Yeah,
we've
absolutely.
opened windows as much as we can every day to vent everything out, but you know, 25 days later, sooner or later,
Yeah,
this house is one giant bug pit right now.
yeah, exactly. Sandra says, question for you, Angelo. Do you think our government is doing enough to help those who've got the virus, or that testing itself is sufficient?
Uh, I'll speak for myself. I think the health unit calling me every day, she's tracking everything she can. Um, if I had to do it all over again, that 100 fever, I wish they wouldn't have had that for me because that could have saved me at least a week and maybe even the eventual pneumonia. I think they may be changing that, like adding more testing and doing it earlier as time goes on. Because remember, I was one of the very early ones. March 17th, I was, I think we have 19 people in Chatham now. I was number 6 back then.
Wow.
And definitely, you're going to see more testing. And even like going back to work, you're hearing all the things. Uh, I'll just philosophize a little bit there. This, if you've heard about herd immunity, COVID-19 has to go through what we call herd immunity. The entire world will get it one way or another. 80% or so will be mild, and the other severe will be hospitalized and critical. Like I said, we are going to go through that one way or another. We've slowed it down by isolation, but eventually everyone is going to get it, except for the governments are now thinking that we'll isolate for a year or two, it may be a long time for those that are really, really susceptible and could die. By the way, the death rate of people that are 80 and above is 25%, just so that you get an appreciation.
Yep.
So what has to happen is we're going to find a whole group. They're doing this right now. They'll find everybody, corner them like in the homes right now. They'll lock it down for all of 2020 and pray and hope that they're not going to get sick. And then the rest of us are going to go through a slow herd immunity. Every one of us are going to go through this. So I've been like, I got it now, I'm okay. But you and everyone else, if we're going to go back to normal living, eventually there'll be enough infected people that we're going to still pass it on. By the way, I also heard they used 14 days. I'm on day 26 today, and the nurse said I need another 2 weeks. So I could end up having it for almost 40 days.
Yeah. Now,
So that bell curve of 14 days is somebody has come up with this is what we think it is, but there are going to be people that have on this side of the curve 5 or 6 days, they'll be okay. And there'll be people that are 40 days. So if you turn a few people loose after 14 days,
yeah.
think what's going to happen. They'll
So,
still be contagious.
so it brings up a couple of interesting questions that I had that I wanted to present to you. Two things really, you know, and the first is what do you say to the people that originally and some of them are still saying, well, don't worry, it's just a cold. It's just a cold that's going around. It's just a flu. It's not a big deal. We're kind of blowing this all out of proportion, and It's just like the flu, like because that
Oh,
attitude is still prevalent.
I'd say, Chris, this. Get your data, first of all. Get your data. I just told you that if you're 80 or older, the chances of you dying is 1 in 4. Okay? I'm an engineer. Follow data. So if all the invincible people that are, by the way, on the other side, 80% are going to 80% are going to be fine. So what we have to do now is figure out a way as a society to protect those that could likely die. And our government is going to have to help us on that. I think China has gone to the extent right now that they're tracking people on GPS on their phones, red, green, yellow. So they're going to know, say, if we were there, they're going to know Ligori has had it, and there he goes.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah,
Keep keep him away from retirement homes, keep him away from everything else, keep him away from grandpa and grandma because he's going to kill somebody.
yeah, and that that
That's the kind of model that I think we're going to go through testing and eventually turning the economy back up. I listened a little bit to the most logical person was Bill Gates, if you get a chance to listen to him. That's likely one of the scenarios that we have to do to contain those very vulnerable ones. Like I said, 1 out of 4 is very high.
yeah.
If you're in that category, and even like, say your daughter, others that we know, look, the susceptibility there and the outcome is so high that we have to do something to protect them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then
That'll be, I'd say that would be all of 2020 by the time we get through this. Now you've started to hear that there'll likely be a second wave. So we're going to be in through this for a long time. I listen to the Canadians. I think we've got to figure it out. We're going to figure out a way to slowly get us back together again. But testing and isolation of the vulnerable ones are the key things to get back up.
okay. And then the second part of that question, then there is a large number of very vocal people that are simply saying, forget this, screw the isolation. Let's just all go out and get it and have a big COVID party so that the herd immunity will just take care of it. And we don't need to wait for a vaccine, and the vaccine may not necessarily be important. We should just kind of go out and make sure that everybody kind of builds up their own natural immunity to that. Do you think that is a valid point
there.
of view?
Sweden's tried that. By the way, now it's a crapshoot. If we want to go at it right now, we're going to get that spike. Okay, it's inevitable. It'll overwhelm whatever we've got, and there'll be a few dead bodies, and so be it. Now comes where governments step in and say, you know what, we I'm the health unit of a community. I refuse to be responsible for vouching for uh,
Yeah.
a herd community party and be done with it. We're into that right now. There's a lot of moral issues around that, but you know what? I agree with you. Right now, after this wave, say let's have one more blowout. But I don't know that any government agency or any medical officer are going to vouch for that right now, Chris.
No, I certainly wasn't advocating for it. I mean, because I don't think that simply rolling the dice on this, especially with its R0 value, with how absolutely contagious it is a good idea because of the fact that while I may be healthy enough and you may be healthy enough to overcome it, even with severe problems in the interim, the people that I may pass it on to into that 20% of people that absolutely are going to contract it horribly. It's sort of my social responsibility to make sure that we don't put those people in jeopardy.
Chris, that's exactly it. If you read that report that I sent to you, if I look, say under 39, between 0 and 39, the percentage of, say, someone dying in that rate is 0.1%.
0.1%.
0.1%. So if you're 30 to 39 is 0.1%. So if you want to have a COVID party right now, there's a 99.9% chance that everything is going to be fine.
With the
However,
yeah,
you will be contagious, and if you run into grandpa and grandma after that party, good luck to them.
yeah. I think that's what a lot of people are not really understanding, right? Is that even if your own personal risk is low, you don't live in a bubble, and the people that you are then going around to visit, even if you're not coming in direct contact with grandma and grandpa, let's say that you feel fine and you've been out to your giant COVID party and you've had your party favors and everybody goes home and you talk to Fred, your next door neighbor, and Fred talks to his produce dealer, and it's the same produce dealer that grandma and grandpa go to, and now all of a sudden that chain has passed it along. So it's not just as simple as let's all go outside and get infected and the herd immunity will take it over. It's let's take these steps that are necessary to prevent the herd exposure, I guess, so that the most vulnerable portion of the population is kept as safe as possible.
Chris, you're bang on. I think you and I see it much the same. So for the time being, I even had this thought. Within the next month or so, I will be cleared and immune. Okay? I'm still grappling with what does that mean, Angelo? Where does that put you? Are you going to go and touch and hug anybody? The answer is, I don't think so. For me.
Yeah.
I'm going to consider myself contagious probably until Christmas, I told my wife. So it's, and especially knowing the impact I could have on someone through it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Does
for
that
sure.
make sense to you?
It does. Yeah, it does. Sorry, we missed a little bit there from the buzz that was going on there, but I think we got the general point. Yeah, is that there's still going to be a waiting period after you get the all clear where you're going to exercise caution, simply to try to contain the spread of this thing.
So,
And sorry, I just wanted to touch
Chris,
on the one other thing that you said there was that there may be a second wave, and I think we've already seen that there's evidence that this has already mutated into two separate strains, and that's one of the problems that is hindering the development of a vaccine or something that can help those most vulnerable of us. So that may be the scare too that's coming up, is that yes, we've gone through the first wave of it, but this thing, since it's already made the leap from animals to humans, and then within humans, we've already seen it make a leap from strain 1 to strain 2. What's going to happen in 4 to 6 months when this thing moves from strain 2 to strain 3? How effective is the vaccine going to be?
Chris, I agree with you. Unfortunately, I'm out of air right now. I wish everyone all the best. I hope that I've explained this as best I could to help someone else. And I wish you and your team all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angelo. I really appreciate this, and don't say anything more. I appreciate that you've used the valuable airtime, shall we say, in helping spread the word, and I commend you on your courage to do this and your courage to go through this, and all the best to you and your wife, of course.
Thank you, Chris. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for letting me do this. Okay, bye.
Absolutely. And just Elvis says, we love you, Cugino. Thank you so much for sharing. So there we go.
Okay, Elvis. Thank you.
All right. Take care,
Okay,
my
bye.
friend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you go. That's a firsthand account from somebody who has, as they said, a mild example of it. So that's a little sobering, and I'm sorry if I didn't get to everybody's comments, but I wanted to be very conscious of Angelo's time that he had, that he felt comfortable where he could speak, because talking takes breath, and if your breathing is compromised, then it's not a good thing. Anyway, thank you so much for to Angelo for joining into the conversation and giving us a firsthand perspective of what it's like. And thanks to Elvis for turning us on to Angelo. All right. Well, let's see. We had a request. We're going to get back to some more music before we get to our next guest. And that conversation ran a little bit longer than I was envisioning these conversations running, but I think purposely it was good because I wanted to get as much of his time as he was willing to share with us, because what he has to say is so important. Um, anyway, thank you, Angelo.